Next up, we have two startup founders with us. They named their startup as Starlick, and now they have been working with GO-JEK for past 1 year. They'll help us understand the problems that faced in the logging world in GO-JEK and how they came up with the solution of a scalable logging platform. We have Gio and Tara. Gio is an athlete. He plays badminton. And Tara, in his free time, he likes watching football, and currently the serial he's currently following on Netflix is Narcos. So please welcome them.
Sorry everyone for the wait. So we are having some technical difficulty. So let's start. So hello, we're from GO-JEK. So in this session, we're going to talk about Barito, which is a scalable logging platform that we built to solve our logging problem. So maybe I'm going to start with self-introduction first. So my name is Gio, and I'm currently with my friend.
My name is Tara.
So yeah, we are working in GO-JEK. I think it's around a year now in GO-JEK. So we are from this company called GO-JEK, which Iqbal has already introduced to you before. Iqbal previously told you about GO-JEK, but he's not showing you any pictures. So maybe I will entertain you with some pictures about GO-JEK. GO-JEK is started like 8 years ago as a call center. So in Jakarta, which has notorious traffic, usually people wants to go into another place by using this service called the motorcycle taxi. And it's called GO-JEK. So that's why the name comes from GO-JEK. We started as a call center, so whenever you want to order a motorcycle taxi, you phone this call center number, and then they will dispatch you a driver so that you can go to your destination. 5 years after that, we built our first mobile app so that instead of using a call center, people can actually install this mobile app and then they can order so that it has become more easy for them to get their drivers. So as time goes by, we built more apps. So if you see this app, there's GoPay that Iqbal mentioned. It's about the payment system. We have this GoBox, which is essentially a on-demand truck platform. So if you need a truck to move big things, you can order it. GoSend, GoMarket, and so on. And also in 2017, we launched even more apps. So like multiple startups combined into one single app. So during these 3 years, we grow by 6,600 times. And we reach 3 million orders per day. I think it's last year, 2017. Right now, we have around 250 engineers, and we have more than 20 products, which keep growing every day. And now, in 2018, we are very humbled, because in 2018, we launched into several other countries, not just Indonesia. So I think 2 or 3 months back, we just launched in Vietnam. So in Vietnam, right now, we have our GO-Ride, which is essentially the motorcycle taxi that I mentioned before. And we are planning to launch GoFood soon. I think this is just last week. So we are happy that we are just launched our service in Singapore. So right now we have launched in several countries, not just in Indonesia. And we're planning to launch our service in Thailand. So me and Tara, so we're working in GO-JEK, which is called the systems team. Iqbal is also with us, and also with several others. What is systems teams doing? So essentially in GO-JEK, there are two kinds of engineers. One engineer's role is to solve the customer's problem, which is people who use our apps. And then there's also the system engineer who is solving other engineers' problem. So basically my customer is not people who use our app, but my customer is every engineer in GO-JEK. So this is what it's all about. It's like 2 or 3 months back, we are thinking to building statistics around what we do. So like I remember in the previous talk about SRE, they are talking about toil. So all the work that you have to do as an engineer, all that repetitive work that you have to do, and then we want to get some data around that. So we are creating a questionnaire, and we are also tracking our ticket management system to track what is the highest number of issue that developers are facing in our organization. So we found out that the top 3 tickets that we get in systems teams, it's about these 3 things. The first one is debugging. The second one is about SSH access to a certain virtual machine box. And the third one is about infrastructure provisioning. So that's the top 3 most important, the top 3 most requested things by systems, by engineers in GO-JEK. So because we are engineer, we are thinking to solve this top 3 most requested problem by trying to automate it. In this talk today, I will focus more on these 2 things, which is about debugging and SSH access. I'm not going to talk about infrastructure provisioning. We have another open source project that we're building for that. It's called Proctor. It's awesome. But today, I'm going to talk about these 2 issues that we're facing. So essentially, in GO-JEK, if there are production outage happen, you will need to debug, right? Because knowing the problems is already halfway part of the solution itself. So that's the most important thing. And usually, what is the common problems related to it, related to debugging and SSH access? The first thing is, because we have a lot of teams in GO-JEK, they are using scattered and unstandardized logging platform. Some team use this solution. Some other team use some other solution. So every team has their own solution, which means that if there is production outage happens, and you have to read all of those logs, you will find it difficult to gather all the information you need to solve your problems, right? And then there's also a bigger problem. Like for example, because the logging platform is not maintained, you will realize that during production outage, the logging platform is not working. Maybe it's down for a while and you're not realizing it. And that's become a huge issue because obviously you're not watching your logging stack all the time, right? Usually people are concentrating on product engineering, building features, and sometimes they forgot to maintain this platform. This is a huge problem for us. And then, because you don't have any logs, usually what people does is that they need access to that box itself. And then they want to see the logs within the box itself. So that's why the SSH access is the 2 most requested thing to our team. So this is not secure, obviously. We don't want all engineers to have access to all production machines. Obviously, we need to segregate them, or we should we should discourage people from accessing the box itself directly. And even if you already get into the box, you face another problem because logs is a transient things. Maybe if you already gain access to it, you will find that the logs is not there anymore because log is, the throughput is very high. It might get rotated. It might not there anymore. And it's very difficult to take a look at all of those logs that is stored inside the machine because there are a lot of files and the file size is very huge. In early 2017, GO-JEK decided to try transitioning to container-based deployment. And I think if we have service running on container, it is even harder for people to get access to it. I mean, like, we cannot just give everyone access to kubectl, right? It's different than what we have been doing previously if we are using VM. I agree with Patrick earlier today, this morning, that DevOps is not about tooling. I agree completely with that because in my opinion, DevOps is about empowerment. And one of the people that we have to empower is developer. So that's why our philosophy is we have to empower all developer so that if everybody here knows about this diagram? Raise your hand if you know familiar about this diagram.
Everyone.
Okay, there are some people already know about it. So one of the most important thing when you launch your system into production is that you need to have visibility around it. This diagram is called the pillars of observability. And these are the three most important components that you need to have when you're running system in production, which is the logging, tracing, and monitoring. And you cannot go live without all of these three. Else you will facing a problem. Because observability is paramount to achieve minimum mean time to recover. If you don't have observability, it means you will like finding needles in the haystack. It will be harder for you to find the root cause of the problems, and it will be even harder to devise a solution to solve it, right? So, because we want to empower our developer, GO-JEK think that if we have a service, we want all of those three pillars ready when we launch a service into production. So, whatever service that you build in GO-JEK, we are thinking that that service must have all of those three elements ready. And the most important thing, it has to be seamless. You cannot overburden the developer by all of these things. Because if you burden the developers with it, the developers cannot focus on the product side anymore. They cannot build more features because they have to think about all of those things, all of the production issue. Instead, their time is precious. They should build more features for our product. We should be more faster, more agile, right? So I will talk mostly in logging, but obviously we are currently researching about tracing and monitoring also. But today I'm going to talk about logging. And to solve this problem, we're building a platform which is called Barito. So Barito is actually a river name in Indonesia. So in that river, people usually transport logs from one place to another via the river. So they cut down the logs in the upstream, and then they just throw it into the river, and then people in downstream will take the logs from outside from the river. So that's where its names come from. So when we are building this platform, there are several considerations that we have to make so that it suits our needs, obviously. The first one, we all agree that setup and maintaining logging infra is a hassle. So it's not that straightforward. Like you have to decide which are the stacks that you will be using, and you have to decide whether you will gonna use a managed solution or you're gonna build your own, and everything is a hassle. So we are thinking if we want to build something, we must make it as easy as possible for the developer. Second is that a managed solution for us is quite costly and it's locked in. This is actually related to the next consideration. It's costly because we have hundreds, even thousands of microservices. And if we want all of those microservices to be locked in, it will be quite expensive, I think. The other is that because we have hybrid infrastructure, it spans across managed cloud services. So we don't only use one cloud services, we use several. And we also have our own data centers, which makes some solution cannot be used in our case. Also, this is also another issue that we are facing because some of our services are highly regulated by law. So they mandated that we must manage sensitive data by ourselves. And some of our logs, it contains sensitive data, such as customer balance, like customer phone number, sometimes, maybe not phone number, but maybe like customer ID and his or her balance. So it's quite sensitive data. This is interesting because I'm not sure if this issue is faced by everyone. In our case, whenever we try to adopt a new solution, because we already have a huge amount of microservices, it makes rollouts hard. Changes are hard for us. So whenever we decided to use one particular solution, and then the next year after that we decided to change its solution, it will become very hard to do because you then have to change all the services which are already running on production. So essentially, if we are building a solution about logging, we have to make it very simple and maybe some kind of abstraction, so that if we change something in the back behind all of the abstraction, people don't have to realize that we're making significant change. So that's the consideration. So I'm gonna do a quick demo of Barito. What is it all about? So essentially, if you are a developer, you will be greeted by this particular interface, this user interface, and then you only have to do these simple steps. Essentially, you can just log in, and then you can create a new application group, choose your capacity, and then you will be greeted by this detailed page. So in this detailed page, one of the most important thing that you have to make note is the application group secret. So that secret will be used later when you want to set up Barito on your services. So this is only 3 steps. Just create app group and make note of the secret. And because of one of our primary use case is for Kubernetes, we are building agent. We are using existing agent, but we are packaging Helm chart for that. So essentially, if you can just add our Helm repository, and then you can create Helm values, which then you can set all the secret, and then you can install, just like that. So basically, if you're already familiar with Kubernetes, these are the steps that you need to do to integrate Barito with your system. And after that, you can turn on or turn off the logging by simply using annotation. So if you decided to turn it on, you can just annotate your deployment with barito.active_true, and the logs will start coming in to the platform. Also, we also still have some VM-based deployments, and the recommended way to install Barito on your VM is to use our cookbook, which is a chef cookbook. So we have this Barito agent cookbook, and then basically it will install TD agent. So TD agent is a different flavor of Fluentd. It's like Fluentd, but it's packaged by Treasure Data, which is the company that behind Fluentd development. So go back. Okay. So essentially, if you're already familiar with Fluentd, you can configure. This is nothing significantly different than what you usually do, right? There's nothing different in here. So basically, you have to set what file or what journal that you want to get the logs from. So right now it supports 2 logs. The first is file-based logging. The second is journal or system-based logging. And then to forward the logs, you will have this configuration. If you take a look at the highlighted section, you will remember that when you create an app group, you will be having a secret, right? You can put your secret here. You can put the name here also, anything you want. And then you have to put the produce URL. So the produce URL, it actually point to server that is running Barito router. I think Tara will explain it better later. So maybe that's all from me about the overview and background on Barito. So maybe Tara can help me.
Okay. Hello everyone. So I'm going to talk about the architecture of Barito. Here is the high-level overview of Barito architecture. So there are 2 main actors. The first one is user, and then the second one is service. User can do 2 things. They can request an app group, and they can see logs through Barito. And service, it only can do one thing. It sends logs to Barito. Behind the scene, there are 3 components in Barito, which is market, log cluster, and router. As a user, you only interact with one thing, one component, which is Barito market. And currently, user can request an app group to our team, and we will create for them. Once the app group has been created, the market will automatically provision a lock cluster. And lock cluster itself is provisioned as a LXC container, thanks to PATHFINDER, another open source project of ours that we call PATHFINDER. So you can check the GitHub of PATHFINDER if you want to see the PATHFINDER itself. Back to Barito, as I mentioned before, that once the app group has been created, it will automatically create a lock cluster. But what is inside the lock cluster itself? So there are several things inside lock cluster. The first one is console. We use console as service discovery. And then the next one, we created a producer. Basically, producer's job is to create a new topic in Kafka and then publish the data to the Kafka. Next one is Kafka itself. We use Kafka as a message queue. And then we created a consumer. Consumer has several things to do. Basically, they subscribe data from Kafka, and then they created Elasticsearch index. And then finally, they send the data from Kafka to Elasticsearch. Next component is Elasticsearch. As we use Elasticsearch as a log storage and search engine. And the last component is Kibana. We use Kibana as a log visualization. After all of this component has been set up, it means that we are ready to handle customers' application logs. So what to do next? User can get the access from us, and then they can remember that I mentioned that user can only interact with one component, that Barito Market. So Barito Market is a web page. They can log into that web page and they can see their app group. Gio mentioned the app group secret, and then please take a note of that secret because it will be needed when you install the agent. So we're going to talk about how to install installation Barito agent. So right now we're using Fluentd. In earlier version of Barito, we use streaming processing, which means that each new piece of data is processed when it arrives. But in some of our high throughput applications, it faces lag because of bandwidth delay problem. So we modified our custom plugin and then the other components to support micro batching. It means that new arriving data are collected as a group, and then the group will be processed at a future time. So we already talked about Barito Market. We already talked about the log cluster, and we have 3 components. The last component is Barito router. This is the central part of Barito. This is like a beating heart of Barito. Basically, Barito router handles incoming logs and then forward to the appropriate cluster. But the question is, how does Barito router know which cluster the appropriate one for every user? So there are 2 processes in Barito router, send logs and see logs. We're going to talk about the first one first, send logs. So here's the diagram. So inside the surface, we have the Barito agent, and then Barito agent will send logs to the router. And then remember that we use the app group secret. The app group secret is used by a router to challenge to the market, and if the secret is valid, market will return the console's IP address for a cluster. And then the router will communicate to console to get the producer IP address. And then finally, router will know which these logs forward to the right producer. It means that router will forward to the appropriate cluster. This is the first process. So in Barito market, user can see in a log count, if you can see in log count. So if there's a traffic in your apps, the log counter will increase. Now the second process is how users see the logs. Inside Barito market, there's a link to open to see the logs through Kibana. And behind the scene, when user click the link, it will call the Barito router. Yeah, Barito router, and then router will challenge instead of Barito market, instead of app group secret in the first process, it will challenge the cluster name, and then the market will return the console's IP, same with the first process, but console will return the Kibana IP. And then router will forward user to the Kibana. Here is a sample of how user can see in their log in Kibana. We've been onboarding several teams in GO-JEK. We've been doing this for 2 months now, and on average, we handle 200K per minute log throughput. At peak, we handled 500K per minute log throughput also. And now we aim to roll out Barito across whole GO-JEK team. Barito is a great example of how GO-JEK maximize their efficiency of engineering team. This enables a relatively small amounts engineer to handle ginormous scale and multitude products. And if you face the problem like we did, you can benefit from Barito because we open source it. And if you want to contribute, please go to Barito GitHub webpage, github.com/baritolog. And yeah, I think that's about it. Thank you, everyone. If you have any question, please ask. 3 menit. Tadi gua ngomong. Sorry.
Hello. Yeah. Hi. My name is Stalin. So Barito seems like a log processing system. I mean, in a software, right? So how is it different from other log processing software like Fling or Splunk or even exactly that you are using Fluentd?
So yeah, I'm gonna answer that. Hello. Okay. So we actually observe some of the solution in the past. There are some solutions that we cannot use. Like for example, we decided to not use any proprietary solution. So any proprietary solution is not considered by us. And then because the problems is with us is it's about efficiency, right? Like for example, we have a lot of services. If we use proprietary solution, we charge based on the number of service or storage. It's quite costly for us. And then like example, you're saying that about Fluentd or Splunk or we also considered some of those. Like for example, Fluentd we use it, but we don't use Fluentd as the only. I mean, we cannot use it out of the box. So basically, we also use Fluentd, but we actually create a plugin so that we can support some of the problems that we are facing in the production when we are using that. Basically, if we are talking about the philosophy behind it, it's not about building another solution, but it's about abstraction of logging. Why? Because if we create that abstraction for logging, essentially if we change anything behind it, we don't want people to change. I mean, like we don't want people to be difficult to change their system. Like for example, if they already deploy maybe for example Elasticsearch into all thousands of their services, and then next year we change Elasticsearch into something else, it means that they have to redeploy all 1,000 services. But with Barito, even if we change something in the back to achieve more efficiency, you don't have to change anything on your system.
For developer.
Because we have the engagement pipeline set up.
Yeah.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
I have a lot of questions, but what are the challenges that you faced with Barito? Like, are you having problems scaling Barito and stuff? Like, what are the challenges that you're facing with Barito right now? And so it's 500K per minute. Is it like KB per minute or like 500K log lines per minute?
100,000. It's 1,000 lines. Number of logs.
Oh yeah, that's nice.
Yeah.
So challenges is the main question.
Okay. What? Kafka.
Yeah, one of. Okay, so I think one of the challenges is because we are using Kafka. So I think it will be great if we can achieve automatic rebalancing based on lag. So right now, if you are using Kafka, you will realize that Kafka only rebalance by 2 algorithm, which is the number of topic partition. You can by sequentially or in spread uniformly, but it cannot rebalance based on lag. Some topics in our log usually handle more throughput than the others. So it will be better if we can create a consumer which can scale based on the lag. The other thing is because we are serving services across cloud infrastructure, then we have to host the router endpoint public, which means latency. So maybe it will be great if we can experiment on how to have higher efficiency and reduce the latency further for that. So that's top two challenges, I think.
Hi, my question is regarding parsing of the logs. So does router parse the logs from all the applications, and when it is sending into the corresponding console IP and when it's publishing the log to producer, is it parsing the structure by dividing key value pairs or anything like that?
No, so router only responsibility is to route the logs.
To forward the logs. Yes.
The responsibility for parsing lies, some of it lies on consumer, so that consumer can appropriately produce the log into Kafka, correct Kafka topic. But I think the responsibility of parsing and indexing is still lies on Elasticsearch.
Yes.
Which is actually one component that we're thinking of upgrading or change. Okay.
We'll have the more questions offline. Thank you so much, guys.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for sharing your experiences from the logging world. Yeah. Again, ladies and gentlemen, a big round of applause for them.